We are at the last, but certainly not the least part of our programme before we stop for some refreshments. And we're absolutely delighted to have soprano Janet Woods here again with us this year, accompanied by Irina Durnova, to sing a piece of music that was composed by Sir Charles Villiers, Stanford, but it is a ballad written by James Sheridan, Fanu. And I will, without further ado, pass you over to Janet, who will give you some of the background as well. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me to participate in this celebration and exploration of Sheridan Fanu's many works and his influences. Exactly a century ago, in 1924, as the emboldened, embryonic Free State found its feet politically, socially and economically, it also strove to assert its culture with the staging of Sheridan Fanu's Seamus O'Brien. Now, they don't refer to it as Sheridan Fanu's, it keeps getting referred to as Charles Villiers, Stanford, and I would imagine that there's a lot of works out there, not just by Sheridan Fanu, but by other writers, Irish writers, that are ascribed to the composer rather than to the writer of the words, the lyrics. Fanu's poem had been set to music by Stanford, and most references to it in musical terms will refer to it as Stanford's opera, completely bypassing Fanu. It has also been turned into a play by an actor and playwright, Alfred Dampier. In fact, throughout the late 19th and early 20th centuries, it remained one of the most popular plays in Australia. Seamus O'Brien fits into the comic opera genre and was at the turn of the 20th century regarded by many as Stanford's most popular and most successful opera. It's set in the backdrop of 1798 Irish Rebellion, and I would argue that it's one of the forgotten masterpieces of Le Fanu. Le Fanu, taking his inspiration from the 1798 rebellion, shines a light on the politics of the day in a satirical manner, representing the culture, political and ideological differences of the nationalities that were on the island at the time. Through the character of Seamus, he presents the Irish as proud patriots, which is surprising given his background, who outwit the rather dim-witted English soldiers, charged with keeping the country in order. However, he cleverly complicates the straightforward plot by the introduction of a villager who betrays Seamus, so an Irish villager who betrays Seamus to the British. Again, he's really picking up on what's happening in our country at that time and the various intricacies and political deviations that are happening. And of course then, the poor old woman, there's one young girl in there, Kitty, and she can't find a man. So who does she fall in love with but a British soldier? Which again would have caused tensions socially at that time. Composed in 1895 by Stanford, O'Brien, it was his fifth completed opera and was his first foray into the comic genre. It's often compared to Bizet's Carmen for its combination of comedy, tragedy and its degree of melodrama. It was first performed in 1896 and it proved very popular, running for a remarkable 82 performances in the West End before then going on an extensive tour of Britain and Ireland, and it also enjoyed a 2-month run in New York. So it was something very, very popular, but again, Le Fanu is lost in it. It is evident an Irish story, which Stanford has complemented with scoring that is Irish in style and which beautifully colours the lyrics and the sentiment. I will say my dog doesn't like it, and he likes everything. He attends a choir that I run, and he attends anything I'm singing at. But when we were rehearsing this piece of music, he went and he turned his back to me and faced the door. And I think it's that it's very high. It's placed very high in the voice. And it is beautiful, but he definitely is not a fan. I'll come back to what I was trying to say. It is evident, yes, that Irish in style. This is particularly evident in the first piece you will hear, A Grave Dawn's Cold, where the cry of the banshee is hauntingly portrayed through the scoring and the placement of the vocal range, and that's the bit the dog didn't like. In fact, a reviewer for the era in 1896 wrote, "I don't think the lyric stage can show you so essentially an Irish piece of work." Both musically and lyrically, the piece has abundant energy and variety, and anyone familiar with Stanford's church music will find its freshness and vivacity striking. It is a masterpiece. Then the beauty of the music, the light touch and the sense of humour in this romantic comic opera make it thoroughly worthy of revival after many years of neglect. So why was it neglected? The reason for the neglect, which saw the opera withdrawn from production by Stanford withdrew it around 1912, is rooted in the political atmosphere at the time. An ardent unionist, Stanford had withdrawn as the politics of Home Rule intensified around that period, and he was worried it might foment Irish nationalism and anti-English sentiment. And it may have. The result was that the ban effectively remained in place until his death in March 1924. Hardly surprising when one recalls that during this period, Ireland had been ravaged physically, socially, politically, and I would always say emotionally, by the 1916 rebellion, the War of Independence, the Irish Civil War, and of course Britain itself had been embroiled in this bloody war, you know, in France, you know, the World War I, which really destroyed so much. And anything that showed, and it destroyed even I know there was tensions between the British and Irish all throughout this period, but our lack of support during that period intensified those tensions. So there was no way they were going to show the Irish in any way being superior to the British or having a success or anything like that. Then in 1924, possibly as a political statement, less than 5 months after Stanford's death, Seamus O'Brien returned to the Irish stage in a production by Joseph O'Mara's touring opera company. The opera became a staple of their repertoire, and it received a second lease of life, preparing the way for a BBC broadcast in 1930. Then, almost 100 years later, in 2024, to mark the centenary of Stanford's death, and please note, no mention of Le Fanu again, it went through a long overdue revival under the baton of David Parry and Retrospect Opera Company, and it's recorded, it's now available to buy. Then Stanford also put other pieces of work by Fanu to music, Padraig Mahur, and that's the one I mentioned it the last time. It's the one that I'd love if we could get a little bit of funding. It's just a handful of singers, small orchestra, and it's a 20-minute opera, and it would be great to stage that. In the meantime, what we'll do now is we'll whet your appetite with two contrasting pieces from Le Fanu's Seamus O'Brien. The first piece is Seamus's wife Nora is overcome with fear, and again, how is the woman being presented here? The woman is, you know, she's certainly not a heroine. She's been presented as she's anxious because her husband, she's afraid he's going to die. He's been captured, and she's afraid he'll die at the hands of the British soldiers. For the previous 2 nights, she has heard the banshee cry, and she takes this as a premonition that she will lose her beloved Seamus. The poem that Le Fanu wrote to express her fears and emotional pain demonstrates his deep understanding of loss and grief, and on a deeper exploration of the poem of the connection between lovers and Catholicism that was so inherent in the native Irish population at the time, and the traditions that the Gaelic Irish were fighting to keep alive, you know, the chieftain, the heroic warrior, the supernatural tradition of the banshee, and that's all included in this beautiful piece. So we shall, yeah. the fear at the time that she was never going to meet the right man. I'm still looking. However, as with everything that Fanu wrote, there's a deeper meaning and deeper message. For me, it's halfway through the piece when Kitty says, of course, if I had money, I'd have a grand lover as well as everything else. So, you know, going back to that dowry, and that if a woman didn't have money, if you were from a different socioeconomic bracket, that you just might not succeed. So again, how are our women being represented? You know, for many, many years we were represented as being, you know, I suppose weak, or as needing a man, and we do at times, but there was never that independence. There was always you know, that struggle, and that's what he was. That's what he tells us in this song. This song is it's frivolous. She's just looking for somebody to come and, you know, sweep her off her feet.